If I don't reach this address by 4:30, everything falls apart. The woman's voice cracked with desperation as she paced beside her disabled luxury SUV. Miss, your tire isn't just flat, it's completely shredded. I'm the only person within 10 miles who can fix this. You need to take a breath and let me help you. Ryan crouched beside the gleaming black vehicle, awkwardly parked on the shoulder of a winding country road. The afternoon sun beat mercilessly on the cracked pavement, releasing the acrid scent of hot rubber into the air. In his 15 years of roadside assistance, Ryan had seen countless flat tires, but rarely on vehicles this luxurious. The sleek, polished exterior seemed wildly out of place in the dusty landscape of Pinewood Valley. The woman looked equally misplaced. Perhaps in her mid-20s, she wore simple jeans and an oversized navy sweatshirt, but the platinum watch on her wrist and the unmistakable designer leather of her handbag told a different story. I was supposed to be there 20 minutes ago, she snapped, glancing anxiously at her phone. This is a complete disaster. Ryan removed his worn cap and wiped sweat from his forehead. It's just a flat tire, not the apocalypse. She shot him a glare that could have melted steel. You don't understand. I had one chance, just one, to get this right. Then maybe it's fortunate I came along when I did. He reached into the back of his rusted pickup for his tools. Now, if you're done panicking, I'd like to do my job. She folded her arms tightly across her chest and turned away, exhaling sharply. Ryan worked in silence, his fingers moving with practiced precision. His years as a firefighter had taught him to remain calm when others unraveled. And after Sophia died, he had learned that sometimes the best gift a man could offer the world was his steadiness. What's your name? He asked without looking up. The woman hesitated. Kate. All right, Kate. I'm Ryan. Your luck's better than you think. Most folks get stranded out here for hours. You got me within 15 minutes. Kate didn't respond. She walked a few steps away and massaged her temples as if fighting off a headache. Ryan glanced up. This your car? Yes, she answered too quickly. You sure about that? Because no offense, but you don't seem like someone who regularly drives something like this. She flinched, then covered it with a scoff. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've observed a lot of people. You walk like someone used to sidewalks, not gravel. And you flinched when the door handle clicked. Her jaw tightened. You're reading too much into things. Maybe. He stood and walked to his truck. Or maybe I'm just paying attention. He returned with a replacement tire and resumed his work. Kate knelt beside the car, clearly struggling to maintain her composure. I was supposed to meet someone, she said suddenly, her voice quieter now. Someone important. They don't give second chances. I needed this to go perfectly. Sometimes, Ryan said, tightening the last bolt, the world breaks down right before something significant happens. Kate looked at him, stunned into silence for the first time since he'd arrived. I don't know what's happening in your world, he added, standing and brushing dust from his jeans. But I've learned that a flat tire doesn't ruin your day. It just makes you pause long enough to figure out what really matters. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to hold back tears. I've got water in the truck, he offered gently. You look like you've been running all day. I have, she admitted, finally letting the words fall. Running from everything. Ryan nodded. Well, you stopped now. Maybe that's a good thing. He handed her a bottle, which she took with both hands as if it might otherwise slip through her fingers. How much do I owe you? Nothing, Ryan said, already packing up. Just promise me you'll take a breath before the next meltdown. Kate laughed softly, the sound unexpected and refreshing. Ryan tipped his cap. Take care, Kate. She watched him drive away, standing beside the repaired SUV with the water bottle still clutched in her hand. And though the tire was no longer flat, something inside her was just beginning to unfold. Kate stood beside the car, sipping water as if tasting something for the first time. Her breathing had steadied, though her eyes still darted toward the road, as if expecting someone to appear. Ryan leaned against his truck, arms crossed, watching her with the patient ease of someone who knew better than to rush a fragile moment. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked. Kate shook her head. "Just passing through." "Where were you headed again?" She hesitated. "To see someone. Family. Someone I haven't seen in a very long time." Ryan nodded without pressing further. "That right, there is usually the kind of trip that ties your stomach in knots. I guess it shows her. Only to someone who's felt it too." Kate sat on a patch of grass by the roadside, tugging her sleeves down over her wrists. "You live nearby?" she asked. "About 5 miles down that gravel road," Ryan said, pointing. "Got a little house, workshop, and not much else." "You work on cars out here?" "Mobile repairs mostly. Folks around here don't always have a way to tow a broken vehicle 20 miles into town. I make house calls." "That's kind," she said, then added, "Most people would have charged me double just for showing up." "I'm not most people," Ryan replied with a faint smile. "I don't take payment for something that's just being decent." "Why?" she asked, genuinely puzzled. He took a breath. "Because when my wife got sick, strangers showed up with casseroles and firewood. When she passed, they kept showing up. I learned something during that time. Kindness doesn't keep score." Kate looked down at her hands. "Your wife?" "She was everything," Ryan said softly. "We were married 16 years. Cancer doesn't ask for permission. It just comes in and takes what it wants. I'm sorry." "Me too. But I wake up every morning and find something useful to do. That's how I honor her." They sat in silence for a while, accompanied only by the sound of wind rustling the dry grass and the occasional chirp of cicadas nearby. "I used to think having everything meant control," Kate said after a while. "But now I'm not sure I ever had either." Ryan looked at her closely. Her hands were shaking slightly, even though the heat had begun to fade with the setting sun. "You're running from something," he said gently. "You don't have to say what, but I can see it." She didn't deny it. Instead, she looked up at the sky. "My name is Kate. Just Kate. Not Catherine, not Ms. Ha." She cut herself off, swallowed hard. "Just Kate." Ryan didn't flinch. He just nodded. "That's good enough for me." She turned her face away suddenly, and her shoulders began to tremble. A quiet sob slipped out before she could stop it. She covered her mouth, trying to suppress the sound, but it was too late. Ryan said nothing. He didn't try to console her or ask questions. He just knelt beside her and placed the water bottle gently in the grass. After a minute, Kate wiped her face with the sleeve of her sweatshirt, embarrassed. "I don't know why I'm crying." "Maybe because you finally stopped long enough to let yourself feel something," Ryan said. She looked at him then, really looked, and something shifted behind her eyes. Trust, maybe, or the first hint of it. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he said. "Now you should get going. The sun's dropping fast." She stood, brushing grass from her jeans. "Ryan, why'd you really stop to help me?" He gave a crooked smile. "Because someone once told me, when you see someone stranded on the road, you don't ask where they're going. You just help them get there." Seemed like good advice. She nodded slowly, eyes glassy. Then, without another word, she climbed back into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away. Ryan watched the taillights disappear down the road, his heart heavy in a way he couldn't explain. Something about that woman told him she hadn't just needed a tire fixed. She had needed someone to see her, and for the first time in a long time, she had let herself be seen. It was just past noon when Ryan saw the same sleek black SUV pull slowly into the gravel drive outside his workshop. The sight made him pause mid-whirled, helmet raised, eyes narrowing slightly with curiosity rather than suspicion. Kate stepped out wearing the same navy sweatshirt from a week ago, though it now bore the signs of travel, creases, dust, and the slightest fray at one sleeve. She looked different too, less frantic, but also more resolved. Ryan set his tools aside and met her halfway. "Let me guess," he said, crossing his arms. "The tire again." She nodded sheepishly. "Yeah, something's off." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Strange. I remember tightening every bolt like it was holding up the sky." Kate smiled faintly. "Maybe I just needed an excuse." That stopped him. He looked at her again, more closely this time. There was no pretense now, no urgency, just a young woman standing there like she had no idea what came next. "You hungry?" he asked. She blinked. "A little." "Come on in. Lunch around here is nothing fancy, but we got decent coffee and terrible sandwiches." Inside the garage, the space hummed with quiet industry. A few teenagers worked at benches, focused and careful, while music played softly from a beat-up radio. Ryan nodded at them and introduced Kate without much fanfare. "This is Kate. She's going to hang around for a bit." They offered polite nods before returning to their work. Ryan handed her a steaming cup of coffee in a chipped mug and pointed to a stool near the wall. "This place," he said, "is more than a garage. I started bringing in kids who needed a second chance. We fix things together. Cars, bikes, old radios. Turns out fixing things helps you feel a little less broken too." Kate looked around. "It feels safe. That's the goal." They sat in companionable silence for a while, sipping coffee that tasted like burnt wood and warmth. Then Kate spoke. "I left everything you know. The house, the career path, the name. I just drove. I didn't know where I was going until I broke down in front of you." Ryan didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Sometimes the flat tire picks the driver." She chuckled. "That sounds like something out of a fortune cookie." Hey, fortune cookies are wiser than they look. As the day unfolded, Kate found herself helping without thinking. Holding a wrench here, fetching a bolt there. She asked questions, listened, got her hands dirty. By mid-afternoon, someone handed her a rag to clean up the oil that had splattered on her jeans. She knelt beside the workbench, rubbing at the stain furiously, and then, out of nowhere, she laughed. It started small, a soft giggle at the futility of trying to keep clean in a place like this, but it grew, bubbling out of her chest until it filled the space. Ryan looked up, caught off guard. "Something funny?" "I've never ruined a pair of jeans before," she said through her laughter. "These cost more than my first car would have." He smiled. "You're doing it right then." Kate wiped her eyes, breathless. "I did remember the last time I laughed like that. That's what grease does to people. It brings them back to earth." She stood, smudged and grinning. "You were right, you know." "About what?" "About how the world breaks down just before something important happens." He nodded slowly. "So what's happening now?" Kate's eyes softened as she looked at him. "I'm figuring that out. But I know I don't want to go back to that world. Not if it means losing this." She gestured around the room. The noise, the smell of metal, the coffee that tastes like campfire, the people who don't ask what your last name is. "You." The room fell quiet again, but this time it was full of meaning. Ryan didn't reply, just handed her a pair of gloves. "All right then," he said. "Let's teach you how to change oil without bathing in it." And just like that, Kate stepped into a life that made her feel something she hadn't in years. Real. The wallet was small, black, and barely noticeable, left behind on the corner of the workbench after a long day at the shop. Ryan wouldn't have even seen it if he hadn't been tidying up after everyone had left. He picked it up to place it in the lost and found drawer, but paused when a slim ID card slid out from a side pocket. The name on the card stopped him cold. Catherine Harrison. Ryan blinked. He had heard that name before. The Harrison name was as recognizable as any in technology, plastered across magazine covers, Forbes lists, and corporate headquarters. He had no doubt now. Kate, the quiet young woman scrubbing oil stains out of her jeans with a crooked smile, was the heir to a billion-dollar empire. He placed the wallet back without a word. The next morning, Ryan didn't mention it right away. He watched her instead, watched how she swept the floor without being asked, how she knelt to help one of the younger boys rewire a busted speaker, how she laughed when grease smudged her cheek. But by midday, the weight of the truth pressed too heavily on him. He walked up to her as she refilled her coffee cup, nodded toward the back steps, and said, "Got a minute?" She followed him outside, the air warm with late spring sun. Ryan leaned against the railing, arms crossed. "You left something behind yesterday." Kate tensed. "What do you mean?" He pulled her wallet from his pocket and handed it to her. She stared at it, her fingers curling around the leather slowly. She didn't ask what he had seen. She knew. "I wasn't snooping," Ryan said. "It just fell open. I recognized the name." Kate looked away. "So what now?" "That depends," he said, "on whether you want to talk about it." She was silent for a long moment. Then she sank onto the step beside him, hands clutching the wallet like it held more than her identity. Like it held a history she had no more strength to carry. "My name is Catherine Harrison," she said softly. "I'm the only child of Daniel Harrison. Harrison Tech." Ryan didn't interrupt. "I was raised in boardrooms," she continued. "Groomed to be perfect. Private tutors, scheduled interviews, lessons in languages I never asked to learn. My life was a curated brand. I didn't make friends. I made appearances. I wasn't allowed to fail or cry or want anything other than what the company wanted for me." She took a breath. "Last month, my father announced he was stepping down, and that I'd be named CEO. I never said yes. I never even wanted it. But no one asked. They just handed me the crown and expected me to wear it." "And you ran," Ryan said gently. "I left the night before the press conference," she said. "I drove without a map, without a plan. I just wanted to remember what it felt like to breathe on my own." Ryan nodded, his voice low. "You know, Kate, or Catherine, if you prefer, I've met people running from a lot of things. Loss, regret, even justice. But maybe," he paused, "maybe you weren't running from the world." She looked at him, eyes red-rimmed. "Maybe," he said, "you were running toward who you're meant to be." Kate blinked, then she started crying. Quiet, unguarded tears that fell not from fear or shame, but from the deep, fragile place where truth finally found a place to rest. "I don't want to be here," she whispered. "Not if it means going back to feeling like a prisoner in my own life." "Then don't," Ryan said. "Stay here. Keep fixing what's broken inside and out. You're good at it. And this place, it's better with you in it." She nodded slowly, wiping her cheeks. "You're not mad." He shook his head. "You could have been a billionaire or a waitress. I would have helped you all the same. But now I see you clearer, and I'm proud of the person you're choosing to be." Kate looked out across the field, the wind brushing her hair from her face. For the first time, Catherine Harrison didn't feel like she was hiding. She felt like she was finally stepping into the light. The following week settled into a rhythm that felt almost too good to be real. Kate didn't just blend into the garage. She blossomed there. What began as occasional help turned into structured sessions. Every afternoon, after the tools were put away and the engine stopped humming, Kate gathered the teenagers in the back office and turned it into something new, a classroom for life. She taught them how to craft resumes, how to speak in interviews, how to shake hands and look someone in the eye. She helped them practice introductions, mock job pitches, even basic budgeting. But more than that, she listened, really listened, to their stories, their fears, their dreams. And they listened back. "Miss Kate," one of the younger boys said one day, "you don't talk like rich people." "That's because I stopped trying to sound like one," she replied with a grin. Ryan watched all of it from a quiet distance. He had always believed in giving kids a chance, but Kate, she gave them something different. She gave them a reason to believe they deserved better. She didn't speak down to them, she stood with them. "She's a natural," one of the older volunteers whispered to Ryan. "They follow her like she's already changed the world." Ryan nodded. Maybe she has. Inspired by the momentum, Ryan and Kate decided to host a community workshop, an open house for anyone who wanted to learn basic repairs or professional skills. Kate took charge of organizing the event, designing flyers by hand, rallying volunteers, and even securing a small donation from a local hardware store. The day of the workshop, the garage buzzed with energy. There were rows of folding chairs under a tarp outside, tables lined with tool kits, refreshments set out by the teenagers. Parents came, curious neighbors stopped by, even the mayor made an appearance. Ryan opened with a short, heartfelt speech. Then Kate stepped forward, holding the mic like it weighed nothing and everything at once. "When I arrived here, I was lost," she said. "But this place helped me find direction, not by fixing who I was, but by reminding me that I wasn't broken to begin with." Applause followed, real, thunderous applause. Afterward, kids who had never held a screwdriver before were helping one another rebuild bikes. A father asked how to apply for night classes. A teenager who once barely spoke above a whisper stood up to read the resume he'd written with Kate's help. When the event ended and the last car rolled away, Kate and Ryan sat on the steps outside the garage, exhausted but glowing. "You did good, kid," Ryan said, handing her a soda. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You're wrong," he said. "They don't need someone who tells them what they can't do. They need someone who shows them what they already are." Kate looked out at the empty lot, now strewn with folding chairs and leftover hope. "This is the first time in my life I feel like I'm where I belong." As the sky deepened into dusk, she opened her phone for the first time all day and froze. A new email sat at the top of her inbox. The subject line read only, "We need to talk." It was from her mother. She opened it, her breath catching. "Catherine, you've been found. Someone recognized you from the news photos. The press is digging. Your father is furious. Come home now, before they destroy what little privacy you have left." "Mom," Kate's hands trembled. The warmth of the evening dimmed. Ryan noticed her expression shift and leaned over. "Everything all right?" She turned the screen toward him. He read it silently, jaw tightening. Then, without a word, he placed a steady hand over hers. "You don't have to run this time," he said. But even as he said it, they both knew something was coming, and whatever it was, it would test everything they had built. It happened on a Monday, clear skies, soft breeze, the kind of morning that made small-town life feel like a permanent postcard. Ryan was tightening a bolt on a busted riding mower when he heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Not one car, but several. He looked up. 3 black SUVs rolled into the driveway in perfect synchronization. Men in suits stepped out with calculated precision. The door of the lead vehicle opened last, and a tall, silver-haired man emerged, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, his eyes colder than the steel of Ryan's toolbox. Kate stepped out from the garage, her heart sinking before her father even said a word. "Catherine," Daniel Harrison said, his voice clipped and low. She froze. "Dad." "You've made quite the spectacle," he said. "Running away, hiding in a place like this, appearing in local news as if you've suddenly become a charity maven." Ryan walked toward them, wiping his hands with a rag. "Can I help you folks with something?" Daniel didn't even glance at him. "You must be the mechanic." "That's right," Ryan said evenly. "And you must be the man who's scaring my friend on my property." One of the suited men moved forward, but Daniel raised a hand. His gaze finally landed on Ryan. "This man doesn't know who you are, Catherine," he said. "He doesn't know what you're meant for. He sees a pretty girl in jeans, not the future of a global enterprise." "She told me who she is," Ryan replied calmly. "And I see someone brave enough to walk away from a life that suffocated her." "She's throwing away everything," Daniel snapped. "Do you know how many lives depend on her? How many deals are waiting for the signature? She was days away from inheriting $1 billion empire. Now she's elbow deep in motor oil. Kate stepped between them, her voice shaking. "Dad, stop." Daniel turned to her, frustration simmering under his polished exterior. "You don't belong here. You're not meant for this." Tears welled in Kate's eyes. "No, I wasn't. But I chose to be here." "You're confused." "No," she said louder now. "For the first time in my life, I'm not." Ryan stepped back, giving her space. Kate dropped to her knees, tears falling freely. "I know I've disappointed you. I know you wanted me to be perfect. But I can't live in a world where I'm just a name, just a face for your enterprise." Daniel stared at her, unmoving. "Here," she said, voice breaking, "I'm seen. I'm loved, not because I'm Catherine Harrison, but because I'm just me. I get to drink bad coffee and fix things. I get to help kids who need someone. And I get to stand beside a man who never asked me for anything but the truth." Her eyes turned toward Ryan. "This is my home now," she whispered. "And he's the person I want to spend my life beside." A long silence followed. One of the guards shifted uneasily. The wind carried the scent of oil and cut grass. Daniel's expression didn't change. His jaw flexed once. Then he looked at Ryan, finally seeing him, not just the grease-stained hands or the worn shirt, but the unwavering calm in his eyes. "You'll regret this," Daniel said to Kate, his voice low and almost hollow. "One day, when the world turns and you realize what you gave up, it'll be too late." Kate didn't flinch. She remained on her knees, grounded, resolute. Without another word, Daniel turned and walked back to the SUV. The others followed. Engines started. Tires turned. Within moments, they were gone, leaving behind only dust and a silence that felt like thunder. Ryan stepped closer, knelt beside Kate, and gently took her hand. "You okay?" She nodded, crying softly. "I think I finally said what I've needed to say for years." He didn't speak. He just held her hand, steady and strong. And though the storm had come to their doorstep, it had passed, and she was still standing. Weeks passed. Summer ripened in Pinewood Valley, and with it, life inside the garage bloomed into something bigger than either of them had imagined. The New Beginnings program, born from oil-stained hands and second chances, was no longer just an idea. It was real, and it was changing lives. What Kate did not know was that far away, in a penthouse office high above the city, her father was watching. Daniel Harrison hadn't spoken to his daughter since the day he drove away from Ryan's garage, but that didn't mean he had forgotten her. Every morning, he received quiet updates, articles clipped from small-town news, social media videos, short internal reports from a trusted assistant. And the images he saw surprised him. There was Catherine, laughing, arms streaked with grease, standing proudly beside Ryan in front of a row of students holding certificates. There she was, teaching a workshop, her voice calm and sure, her hands expressive and warm. And there she was, sitting on the edge of the garage steps, sipping coffee and scribbling ideas into a battered notebook. Not the polished hair in heels and designer suits, but someone stronger, someone freer. At first, Daniel dismissed it as rebellion. But something about her eyes kept pulling him back. She was not rebelling, she was becoming. The day he saw the headline, "New Beginnings Garage receives community grant, expands youth program." He sat in his office long after the lights had dimmed, fingers steepled beneath his chin. He made no phone call, no announcement. Instead, he placed a quiet order through one of his holding companies, funneled through a local foundation. A donation, substantial, no names attached. Within a week, crates arrived at the garage. New compressors, diagnostic scanners, safety tools, and even refurbished laptops for the students. Ryan opened the shipment, eyes scanning the invoice. The sender was vague, just a foundation name no one recognized. But there was a detail too precise to ignore. One of the laptops had a small engraved quote on its underside. "Sometimes love is watching from a distance." Ryan read it, then looked across the yard where Kate was helping two teens repair a beat-up go-kart. He folded the invoice slowly, tucked it into his back pocket, and said nothing. That night, as they sat outside beneath string lights and the hum of cicadas, Kate leaned against Ryan's shoulder and sighed. "Do you think my dad hates me?" she asked. Ryan took a moment. "No, I think your dad is scared." "Of what?" "Of losing you for real. And maybe of admitting that the way he loved you wasn't the way you needed." She nodded, her eyes glossy but calm. "He always wanted me to be strong." "You are, but not the kind of strong he recognizes." Ryan looked at her. "Maybe he's learning." She looked up. "You think he's still watching?" Ryan smiled, subtle and knowing. "I'd bet everything on it." He didn't tell her about the crate or the engraved quote. He didn't have to. Some things were meant to remain unspoken, like the way a father, even one as powerful and proud as Daniel Harrison, could finally learn to let go just enough to let love take root quietly from the sidelines. And in doing so begin to find his way back, one act of unseen grace at a time. The morning sun had just begun to warm the gravel driveway when Kate opened the mailbox. Among the usual flyers and utility bills was something different. An envelope, cream-colored and hand-addressed, and in her father's unmistakable cursive. She stood motionless for a long moment, her heart thudding. Then she carefully slid it open. Inside was a single sheet of fine stationery. The ink was dark, the handwriting even. "Catherine, you found your path. I still don't understand it, but I see that it makes you smile in ways I never could. I see the strength in your hands, the light in your eyes. I see your heart. Live what you believe in. Make it yours. I won't stand in your way. I'll always be here, just from afar." Dad, the paper trembled slightly in her hands. She sat on the steps, tears silently slipping down her cheek, not from sadness, from release. Ryan appeared a minute later, wiping grease off his hands with a rag. When he saw her expression, he didn't ask. He just sat beside her. She handed him the letter. He read it in silence, then folded it gently and gave it back. "Sounds like he's learning," he said. She nodded. "Took him a while." Ryan smiled. "Some men don't know how to love out loud. But that doesn't mean they don't try, in the only way they know how." Kate leaned against his shoulder. "He's watching, isn't he?" "Yeah. And maybe that's enough." That weekend, the air buzzed with excitement as the garage filled with families, teachers, and neighbors for the first graduation ceremony of the New Beginnings program. Banners fluttered on the fence, hand-painted by the students. Folding chairs lined the lawn. A makeshift podium stood beside the garage doors, flanked by rows of proud, fidgeting teens in donated button-up shirts and borrowed dresses. Ryan stepped up first. His voice was steady, humble. "I fixed cars most of my life," he said. "And I can tell you, no matter how broken something looks, there's always a way to make it run again. You just need the right tools, the right hands, and sometimes the right second chance." He paused, then reached behind the podium and held up an old weathered tire. This tire came off a car on a back road not too far from here. That flat brought someone to my door who didn't need a mechanic. She needed a moment, a pause, a path. He looked over at Kate, who was already wiping her eyes. "This tire," Ryan said, holding it high, "was the beginning of something better than any roadmap could have planned." Kate stepped forward next. She didn't need a speech. Her eyes did the talking. "I used to think that building an empire meant being powerful. Turns out, building people is what really matters." Applause swelled. She looked out at the rows of students, once quiet, angry, scared, now standing tall. "You fixed your futures," she said. "And mine too." After the ceremony, the students posed for pictures. Parents hugged their kids. Laughter filled the air like music. Ryan and Kate stood under the new sign above the garage. New Beginnings Garage. We fix more than just cars. As the camera clicked, capturing them arm in arm, Surrounded by kids who once had nowhere to go, a car sat parked down the street, engine idling. Inside, a man in a dark suit watched quietly through the windshield, a faint smile softening his usually stern features. Then, without a word, he drove away, back to his city, his buildings, and his silence. Because sometimes love does not knock on the door or ask for forgiveness. Sometimes it simply stands at a distance and lets the ones we love become who they were always meant to be. And so what began as a flat tire on a quiet country road became the spark that changed not just one life but many. In a world that often values power over presence, Katherine Harrison chose a different kind of wealth, purpose, love, and a life built with her own two hands. If this story moved you, reminded you of the power of second chances, or simply touched your heart, remember that sometimes the smallest acts, like fixing a tire, lead to the biggest transformations. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.